change it. Okay. Seven, 6, 5, 4, and 3, 2, 1. Good evening, Milwaukee. Dave Clark, along with Doug Cornfield and Dave Geis. This is the Ability MKE Now show, the Pulling Each Other Along show, WXRW 104.1 River West Radio in Milwaukee. Welcome, everybody. We got a special guest tonight, Doug and Dave, a 3-time world champion, boxing champion, Bonnie Mann, and she hails from my hometown, living in my hometown right now. Grew up not far from my hometown. So let's welcome in Bonnie here and find out what her very, very interesting story is.
All right, we're going to bring you right in, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie.
So Dave and I, just so people know, we're actually both in the same region. I'm in Dave's office down here in sunny Florida. So all you people from Milwaukee, I get to rub it in even more this week.
And maybe in Corning too.
That's right. It's not that bad here in Milwaukee anyway.
Very good. Dave, guys, how you been this week?
Good, Doug. How are you guys doing?
You know, I guess
hanging in there. We're doing well.
All right.
Yeah. So Bonnie, it's great to have you on the show. And one of the reasons that we have Bonnie coming on the show is I got to know Bonnie, I don't know how many years ago. I don't know when you were working at the Snap Fitness and doing training there, but I got to know Bonnie's story. And when we started writing the Pulling Each Other Along book, I asked Bonnie if she would want to participate, and gladly she accepted. And now she's going to be in a book that will hopefully be out here in the next few months called Pulling Each Other Along. And her chapter is a great one. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today. So Bonnie, thanks for being here with us. Sorry that you're still suffering in the cold of Corning, New York.
It's actually not bad here today. I hate to disappoint you, but it's actually one of the warmer days that we've had. So people were coming into the gym today with no coats on. It wasn't bad.
No coats.
So that means it was 30, 35?
And just a little bit warmer, but not much.
How's the weather in Dave Geis? What's the weather report in Milwaukee?
We've had high 30s, low 40s lately. So
heat wave.
Oh, wow.
It's like the middle of July around here.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Bonnie, I want to start off. I want to ask you a question. I read the chapter that's going to be in the book, and we're not going to cover all that because people will have to get the book to read your full story. But one of the questions in reading your chapter, you mentioned the importance of your mom in your life, and you said she was a waitress at a well-known restaurant in Bath, New York, I think.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if that restaurant could have been the Chatawal.
It absolutely was.
My all-time favorite restaurant, man. When I visit the area, I'm sure your mom and I must know each other because every time I'm in the area, and when I was living in the area, I went up to Bath all the time to eat at Chatawal. So I wanted to clarify that because I had a feeling that was it.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the Chatawal has closed down, so you won't be visiting there again unless somebody else opens it. But she was there for 20 plus years. And the original owners, Popeye and Liz, I actually went to work for them for a little while when I was 14 and 15. And they were kind of like grandparents to us growing up, and everyone was like family. And, when you went there, you knew it was kind of a family-owned business. And,
absolutely.
The sticky buns, everyone loved the buns.
You kill for those, man.
Yeah, you sure did.
Those were great. Those were great. Before we get into any other questions, if you can summarize, and that's going to be tough to do with the scope of your story, but if you could summarize in a capsule, like 5 minutes or so, how you got to where you got to?
Wow, 5 minutes. Like you said, it's
Yeah, I get
it's
it.
hard to do that. But I guess what I'd say is, like you said, Bath, local small town. Kind of just always had this, feeling that I would grow up to do something. I mean, I never really knew what that was. And, when people do read the book, they'll understand a lot of the obstacles that were there from the time I was very young through adulthood. And I just always had this, I kind of looked at the small town, right, and knew there was something more out there beyond just, no offense, but, small town Bath and Corning, and I wanted to do more. I ended up, going into the military, and I think that helped shape a lot of, what I did later on, especially being in the Marine Corps. From there, just always being an athlete. The one thing that I always got when I was in high school or any avenue where I was playing sports, I just knew that if I really had good work ethic and just busted my butt and worked hard, that I'd be able to pretty much, accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish if I tried hard enough and looked for ways to do that. And so ultimately, the story is about going through a lot of trials and tribulations that people just don't know about on my end, and keep putting one foot forward and realizing that once I was done playing softball and baseball, because my arm was kind of shot after 20 plus years, that I stumbled upon the world of boxing. Did it for fitness at first, just to lose weight and get in shape, and just kind of found out I was pretty good at it. Went through the amateurs, did some tough man contests, ended up going pro, and one thing leading to another. The team I worked with, and as they say, the rest is history. With ending up with being fortunate enough to have a few connections that I got some chances to really go for some bigger fights, some title fights, and just putting in a lot of work and reaping some rewards from that later on in life.
So Bonnie, being in the boxing world, I know you've recently been chosen for what's the exact title for the Hall of Fame that you're going to be in?
This one coming up is the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame.
International Women's, and that's going to be in Las Vegas, correct?
Correct.
And I know it was pushed off a little bit, so we're hoping the book's finished by then, so we can sell lots of books and have you sign them. But you recently lost a friend in the boxing world, if I'm not mistaken. Someone you're pretty close to.
Sure did. Well, I think a lot of people were close to this individual, but one of the special connections that we had, Leon Spinks and his wife Brenda, who's amazing. But Leon was just a special kind of guy, and we were actually inducted into the Marine Corps Boxing Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2016. I was in 2017, and he was there the year that I was inducted. And it's just kind of one of those brotherhood, sisterhood type things with it being the Marine Corps. And yeah, I got to know him a little bit better, and his wife as well, over the past few years with the International Boxing Hall of Fame up here in New York, in upstate, and sat around the table talking to him one day for he and his brother and a few others for about 5 hours. And he's a special kind of guy. He was just a real honest person who worked hard, had a good life, and it's always hard to hear when somebody that's just kind of that down to earth kind of guy. When that man asked me for my autograph when I got inducted, I was like, what's happening right now in this world that Leon Spinks is asking me for mine? I was going to ask him for his, and he just said, I'll give you mine, but I need yours. And it's just something I won't ever forget. He was a very humble man. He was very funny. And it didn't matter who you were. You could go up and talk to him, and he would say hi to you and spend time with you. And, I just got to know his wife a little bit as well. And we do stay in touch. I'm hoping that she's out in Vegas. I'm hoping that she'll be able to come out there to the Hall of Fame inductions as well. And but it's always hard to see, people like that work hard, pass away.
Nice.
Before you leave that, we have something else in common that you just made me aware of, Bonnie, and that's I met both Michael and Leon in Montreal. I think it was the 1976 Olympics. And so I too had I don't know him like you did, but so we have something else in common there. I met both of the Spinks brothers.
Yeah, the one year it was Leon and Michael were there, and they tried to get there as often as they could. But it was one year where they actually did a special celebration for the 1976 U.S. Olympic team. So everybody was there, and Sugar Ray and they were all there, and that was a pretty cool induction that year, and that special celebration. So it was that year that I went in to Graziano's, the restaurant up there, and after they have on the last day on Sunday in the afternoon, after everything's done, a bunch of the guys, a bunch of other people, they get together and they just go into the bar area, eating area, and sit around. And I'll just never forget that I'm sitting at this table, and Brenda had me come over and sit down with all them. And I look at it as like that, what was it, Sesame Street, where it's like one thing doesn't belong with the other or look like the other.
Dave knows what that feeling's like.
Honestly, that's how I felt, because I'm sitting there and right to my left was Michael Spinks, right to my left, and then to him was Leon, then Brenda. To my right was Kay Hagler, Marvin Hagler's wife. I wish I'm gonna hurt myself for not knowing her name. It was John Stracey's wife, and then John Stracey, and he won in the Mexico Olympics, and he's I believe it's from England. And then Marvin Hagler, and I'm sitting there going, I'm just looking around going, what's happening right now? Like, and I realized what an honor and a privilege that is. And Brenda's the one going, hey, this is Bonnie, she's a world champion. And we're sitting down, and I'm just sitting there listening to these stories. And we were there for 5 hours. I mean, the place closed down and we're still sitting there. So it's just, the world of boxing has been really, really good to me. Opportunities that I know I would have probably never, ever had before, if it had not been for boxing.
So if I'm not mistaken, you were an athlete prior to boxing.
I was.
And when that candle fused out is when you found boxing?
Yeah, that's right. I've always played sports, softball, fast pitch, slow pitch, baseball, fast pitch, was my first love. I was the first female in Steuben County to play Little League with the boys. And that's when I fell in love with baseball. And then, but 20 some years of doing that, my arm, I'm pure sidearm. So, here's my rotator in this arm. Here's my rotator. And so, playing, I was very competitive, always been very competitive, played on the All-Marine softball team, traveled, around the country playing, representing the Marine Corps. And I got to where I always said, if I got to a point of where something just wasn't fun and I wasn't enjoying it, having a fun time with it, I just kind of burnt myself out. And honestly, that and my shoulders was the deciding factor. And when I left from doing that, I was just in the regular gym, in Gold's Gym. I was just, working out. And I really decided after about a year that I needed something different, that just wasn't my thing to just do that and only that. And went to interview for a job. And the guy that was interviewing me said, hey, if you come back from Florida, because I interviewed for the same job down in Florida in Orlando. He goes, if you come up here and take that job, at this point it was in North Carolina, he goes, I'll introduce you to this girl who used to be a professional boxer in the 70s and the 80s that works for us. And I think maybe that's something you'd enjoy. So I said, all right. 2 weeks later, after I'm at the job for about a week, he introduces me to her. Name's Teresa Arguello. She's down in Texas now. And she asked me if I wanted to do a workout. I said, sure. We went to the warehouse, and she put me through about 20 minutes of a workout. The next day, I could not move. I was so sore. And I basically just said, okay, teach me more. I want to know, because it was a challenge. And
Right.
that was really how I got into boxing.
So how long from there till you're getting your first belt?
Wow. So I was in the U.S. amateurs for about 6 years. And from the amateurs, then I went, I turned pro. And after I turned pro, it was in 2005. So about 5 years after that. So about 11 years. About 11 years of boxing before I got the first opportunity for my first world title.
That's putting the work in, that's for sure.
That is for sure. So we are on the 104.1 River West Radio and the Ability MKE Now show. This is the Pulling Each Other Along series with Dave Clark, Doug Cornfield, and Dave Geis. And we have special guest Bonnie Mann with us. If you're listening in, Bonnie's been a 3-time world champion boxer and had a pretty long road to get to those successes. And we're just glad that she's on the show with us today. Bonnie, I had another question for you that I didn't know until we did the pre-show, kind of chit-chatting behind the scenes. But because we have this baseball player in this room with me here, Dave Clark, who played kind of a unique baseball on crutches and all those things. You told me you played professional baseball. And how did all that come about?
I was playing softball, and then after the movie A League of Their Own came out, word got out that they were going to try to bring back women's professional baseball. And as Dave is aware, I mean, years and years ago, they had women's professional baseball. And so when we heard that was going to come up, a few friends of mine and I said, let's go ahead and get a team together and let's play. So I was in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time. I lived there for 26 years after I got out of the military. And we went ahead and there was a league and we played. It was a lot of fun. I pitched and played shortstop, third base. Pretty much I was almost always an infielder. Shortstop was primarily in any softball or baseball, but shortstop, and then did a lot of pitching. There's only 2 of us that actually pitched. So yeah, did that for a while.
Yeah. So did you have a certain pitch? I know, did you pitch a knuckleball? Did you mess around with a knuckleball like Mr. Clark here?
No, I can't be as good as Mr. Clark is. Mine was just try to get it over the plate and throw it as fast as I could.
So was he.
But quite honestly, it was just a fastball. It was as fast as I could, as controlled as I could. There was no time to learn how to do all those pitches. Going from the last time I played baseball was grasshoppers in Little League. And then, then right into this with the women's. And what was cool about that, though, was we got a chance to go to Fayetteville, North Carolina, before one of the men's minor league games. And we got to play I think it was 4 innings. And the women that were on the team that were in the movie A League of Their Own were there in attendance. And so that was, pretty special to be able to meet these ladies that were, trailblazers and pioneers back then.
Very cool.
Now, Bonnie, I'm gonna go back to my career a little bit, and I want to correlate it with yours because there were a lot of naysayers. My situation was unique, and I didn't know if I could do it either. But I wanted to find out for myself. I played just like you. I played Little League ball all the way on up through the ranks in Corning, and could pretty much hold my own against so-called able-bodied players. But I didn't know whether I could take it any further, but I wanted to try. So I dealt with a lot of naysayers, a lot of negativity, a lot of you're never going to be able to do this. I'm sure you probably encountered some of that along the way in your path as well. And you can do two things with those types of situations. I believe you can let them bring you down, or you can let it motivate you and prove to yourself that, and to them, that what you're telling me is not true. And so I always took that second path, because even my own grandfather, rest his soul, when I revealed to him that I wanted to try to play baseball professionally, said, Dave, why don't you go get a safe, secure job at Corning Glass Works? And obviously I didn't take his advice. Years later, I found my own mom doubted my attempts when she handed me a letter after my career was over that she had written to the original scout that signed me. And with tears in her eyes, she said, how could I have ever doubted you? They never, however, held me back from going. They doubted, but they didn't show it. In your case, I'm sure you had to deal with people that were telling you you couldn't do what you ended up doing. And how did you handle that situation?
A lot like you did, Dave. I've just always had that in my gut that, that I was meant to do something bigger. And I never really knew what that was until, I started looking back at things going, oh, well, that's why that happened, because I needed to learn this lesson to move forward and go on. But yeah, I mean, especially in boxing, right? There's no offense, but most of the men in the world of boxing, for many, many years, and even some still today, just don't believe we belong there. And, we've fought our hearts out to just show that we are just as good and just as deserving to be main events and to be on pay-per-views, to get paid better, and that's all still obviously still a struggle that's ongoing. Things are changing slowly but surely, but yeah, I mean, I had lots of people, and especially because I got into it at an older age. It wasn't like I was 15, 16, 17 getting into the sport. I was in my, my mid to late 20s when I first started even kind of messing around with it. So, one, it was you're a woman, and two, you're old, because you're not a 9-year-old boy starting out in boxing. You're a female starting in your late 20s. But just that athletic determination, and I think it's just like the work ethic, the heart, and it's what I wanted to do. And you could tell me no, but I'm going to prove to you that I can do it. And when I look back at my career, in my amateur career, I lost my first few fights. Then I went on to win the bronze medal I was an 0-4 boxer, 0 wins, and went out to California and said, let's enter the U.S. Nationals. Okay. But I took 3rd place in the country. And I did that 2 years in a row. After having a major asthma attack, I figured my boxing career in general was going to be over. And at the age, I think it was like 32 at that time, I had to make a decision. I was at that age of where I really wasn't going to get any fights unless it was in the Masters division. And we already had to travel the country all over the place just to get bouts. So, I made the decision to go ahead and just train and see if I could get my lungs back and get where I needed to be. And then I decided to turn pro. Same thing though, lost my first few bouts, won a couple, lost a couple, won a couple. And in my mindset was really, if I take what happened in the bout and I work with my team and I work on what didn't work and what did work, and just continually learn, I'll get better. Now, how much better, I don't know. If it would lead to anything, I don't know. I just knew that if the time came and I was supposed to just give it up, I would know. And that just wasn't happening. So I just kept on going. And, one thing led to another. And finally I started winning like 5, 6, 7 in a row. And then finally won my first world title.
I think the bottom line is you've got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself. And, the other guy on the show here, Dave Geis, our other co-host, he came to Ocala 3 consecutive years trying to make the Indianapolis Clowns roster.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me you changed the tryout to Orlando, and then you just kept saying
And I was trying, man. And I kept seeing this guy come back, and I'm like, let's move so he can't find us anymore. But he came back 3 straight years and finally made the roster. And that's what it takes. That never give up attitude, the believing in yourself. I've always tried to identify my weaknesses and work on my strengths. Because I had a lot of coaches, however, that were, you need to work on your weaknesses. Well, you know what? I ran 11 seconds to first base. I don't care how long I worked on running. I wasn't going to run any faster to first base. So why would I put time into that when I could put it into making some of my strengths stronger? So, believing in yourself is huge for what you did.
No, I agree. I think that, we all, a lot of times people, we're looking elsewhere for not necessarily a handout, but for help, when sometimes we really have to look inward first. Because if you don't have that belief in yourself, to me, it's kind of hard how do you get someone else to believe in you and want to put the work into you and with you? And so, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you really have to believe in yourself. You have to have that mindset of, I'm going to do this. And it's in anything in life. If you want to go go beyond high school, when someone tells you that you're not smart enough to go to college, but you want to go to college, there's a way. You just have to figure out what that is.
Absolutely. And I think to fit the title of our show, obviously you've had people pull you along, help you along during your course of your career. I did the same, but there comes a point where you got to pull yourself along as well. And I think we all did this on this show at some point in our different careers, is you pull yourself along as well as having other people pull you along. And sometimes you're you need to be pulled along by others. So, but yeah, I think any of us have had any degree of success can attribute that to the people that helped us, but also to the inner drive that we possess.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have gotten to where I did had there not been a couple of people, help pull me along to get me to where I went.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering too, Bonnie. I'm looking at the chapter that Doug had sent me about your story, and they've mentioned it, how some people were saying that you were too old, not good enough, starting too late. Did you use that as kind of fuel to kind of pull yourself along as well?
Oh, absolutely. I can be a little defiant sometimes. If someone's telling me I can't do it, I'm believing it. Show you that.
We got to wrap up the first segment of the show, and we're going to be back with everyone next week at the 104.1 River West Radio. This has been Doug Cornfield, Dave Geis, Dave Clark. Bonnie, man, thanks for joining us. Are you going to be able to stick around for the post show with social media and our social media? We'll be back in just a few minutes. Again, Doug Cornfield, Dave Clark, and Dave Geis, thanks for joining us.
Night, everybody.
Yeah.
And we are back for the roundup. Bonnie, thanks for the live radio, and we appreciate all those insights. Now we can relax a little bit. We don't have to.
You are ugly, you know it.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I was looking at
He's talking to me. No, it's Dave Geis.
What?
We have to pull in Kurt. We'll pull in
No,
Kurt. So
no,
we'll see what Kurt looks like on the screen.
You know what? Kurt's not eating.
Kurt's
That's
not
amazing.
eating.
Yeah, that's like a food.
Amazing.
Yeah, I ate a little early tonight. Thanks for noticing.
Well, you have to cover up that bald head. That's his issue, man. It's like
I used to have hair. Show that picture. I had hair when I
there
was
you go. Hair and
Look
teeth.
at that.
Hair and teeth.
Look at that.
Look at
Look at
those
that
teeth.
hair. We
So-
look like train engineers there, Dave.
Somebody said Dave should be the Colgate poster child, I guess.
Yeah, well, they can send me a few bucks.
Colgate, there we go. We're advertising for you now. We're on our after
Yeah.
post show. Well, Bonnie, thanks for joining us. We didn't get into some of the questions that we ask every week, but Dave's got more too. I mean, your story is, again, we're not going to give all of the story away for the pulling each other along.
No, they have to.
when it comes out.
Yeah, they have to check that out for themselves to get all the real details.
Yeah.
There you go.
One quick mention, though. You were inducted into the Marine Corps Boxing Hall of Fame in 2017. How did that come about, and how did you feel when you received word that you were to be inducted?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got word, which I had no idea, because here's the funny thing is I never boxed when I was in the Marine Corps because they didn't allow women to box during the time I was in. So when I got the call, it was actually from Gunny Klein, who called me and said, "Hey, want to let you know that you've been nominated and inducted into the Marine Corps Boxing Hall of Fame." And I'm like, I was on the phone, and I literally didn't. I said, "Hello, who's this?"
Bill there.
And because I honestly didn't know. I had no idea. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. I had no idea. And then I started, so I after I spoke to him, and he said, we haven't announced it yet. It's not official, but just so you know, it's official that you're in, but we're not making it public yet. I said, okay. And so I started, I still was a little kind of dumbfounded. And then I found out who had nominated me. And it's actually somebody who was part of our boxing team that all worked together. And he was a boxer and a Marine, and he knew of other people that had been inducted in the past prior to a couple of years before that. And yeah, I mean, I was kind of blindsided by it. I had no idea that it even existed. And when I went down to the induction, to be in line with all these guys, and I have some pictures on Facebook that are there to see, but we're standing in line like 4 across and a few deep, and I'm walking up, and actually that year, the year I was inducted, the referee Richard Steele was inducted at the same year. You get up to the front, and they hand you this Marine Corps scarlet and red, scarlet and gold binder with the certificate in it, and actually they hand us this. I can show it to you right here. They hand us this ring. I don't wear it out because if I wear it, I might knock somebody out. It's so big.
I guess so.
I mean, trying to show it in here, but it's kind of.
That's a sledgehammer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the funny thing was when I did get this, and I first had it on, I had a rental car because I drove down, and I went to go grab my seatbelt, and when I did, my ring hit the window, and I thought I had broken the window, and I was like, "Oh dear Lord!" But thank God for insurance, just in case. But But yeah, so it was such an honor. But just to see the people that are around and just the history of the Marine Corps, to know that. I guess they said it was for the contributions I had done outside, even after I got out of the Marine Corps. But it was a real honor to be inducted into a sport that, number one, I didn't even participate in while I was in. But to be recognized like that against, with my brothers from the Marine Corps, because there's only a couple of other women that have been inducted. And there was a gentleman there who worked at the Pentagon, and he said he asked for one of my pictures to be signed, and I gave it to him. And he goes, "I only have one picture in my office right now in the Pentagon, and that's Leon Spinks." He goes, "Now I have two." And again, it was just one of kind of that moment that struck me like, wait, what did he just say? Now my picture's in the Pentagon. Okay, in his office. I mean, it's not like it's just out there, but I kind of sit there because to me, I'm just this girl from, this part of New York, Bath, Corning. I've just always worked hard, and, I think, God's blessed me with a platform, and that's what I look at all of this as, that God's provided opportunities that I hope that I've taken advantage of to build a platform so I have a voice. And, it's, Lord knows it was, boxing was never going to be for the money, because that just didn't exist and still doesn't really. But to share the story and share the things I've gone through, I've always said, if it helps one person when they hear the real story and the whole story, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in life.
So Bonnie, I'm a little intrigued. Behind you, there's a tree with some roots in a picture there. I'm going to put you back on here. And what's that about? I'm curious.
Well, it actually just finally got here after about 10 weeks waiting on it, and I just put it up 2 days ago. So it's just my last name, and when I saw this, what I will say is during the time of quarantine, pandemic, a lot of downtime before I was able to go back into actual work. I was actually working elsewhere. I was working at the YMCA. I was a director there for 6.5 years. Worked a lot of hours, and I love the YMCA. I love what it does for the community. But I also have 2 kids, 11 and 13. We knew that there was stuff going to be coming up with homeschooling, remote learning, stuff like that. And I just really started to sit back and reevaluate life. I think that's the biggest thing that happened during all of this of the downtime was, one, reevaluating life. Where was I going? What was I doing? How was I getting some quality time back for me, including writing? Because I've been writing for probably over 50. Well, it's longer now. I always say 15 years, but that was probably 5 years ago when I said that. It's probably close to 20 years now, writing in journals, writing part of my story, always writing. It's just been a love of mine. And so when I saw this, it really just spoke to me about roots and family, family tree and roots, and kind of settling down, but growing, with my kids, wanting to see what they do, making sure I'm seeing their sports. And honestly, it just when I saw it, it just spoke to me in terms of, especially the roots. I don't know what it was about that, but it's just something that spoke to me during this whole reflection time that I had going on for several months while we were quarantined. And that's how that became part of.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I saw that and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting,
Yeah, it's all
artwork, I guess.
Yeah, it's all metal.
Yeah.
But it's very thin, and I saw it advertised, and I went ahead and I don't know, it spoke to me and always has. It was nice to finally see it put up.
So since we are going to be highlighting your story a bit in the Pulling Each Other Along book, what is it at this point, and it could change because I think it changes. At this point, what does it mean to you when we say pulling each other along?
I'll say, for me, pulling each other along, the one person that really helped me the most from the time I met him was Paul Marinaccio, and I do write about him in the book. He's my best friend. He still lives down in North Carolina, but he's originally from Buffalo. And I walked into a gym one day, and he was the first person in there. I started working on a heavy bag, and he could obviously tell that I did not know what I was doing. And he came over to me, 6'3", almost 6'4", 230 pounds. And he said, can I help show you how to hit that bag the right way? Yeah, please, so I don't break my hands. And he is the first person that really spent a lot of time with me, showing me how to do things. And we literally became best friends, and we are to this day. And had it not been for him, there's a lot of times I went through some, hard times. He was always there. He's always been there for me. My first world title I won on his birthday in 2016, or 2005 on April 16th is when I won my first world title, and it was on his birthday. And in the ring, I looked right at him and I said, "Here you go. This is your birthday present," because I haven't had time to get you anything. So Paul, honestly, had it not been for Paul, when he opened up a small little place in his partner's dance studio, she had extra space, built a small gym in one of the areas, one of the rooms that she wasn't going to be using. We started working out there. We called it Jawbreakers. And I started teaching some classes there after I got out of work. And that's where I worked out as well. And that's where I actually met Coach Bradley, who was there to watch him. And after I watched him work with him a while, I just came out and asked him, "Do you think you'd work with me?" And he goes like, "I don't know," because Coach Bradley coached the men's U.S. Olympic boxing team for 3 Olympics. And it was just one of those things, in the right place at the right time. And then Coach started working, told me to come over and start working with him one day. He said, "Are you working out?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, come work out." And I just knew I had to work out harder than anybody else if he was going to kind of look at me a little different than just somebody else in the gym. And I'll leave the rest of that for people to read in the books.
Very good. Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
I'm going to wake you up over there. What's any questions, any thoughts trigger in your mind? Because I'm sure the story is relatively new to you of a 3-time world champion boxer.
Yeah, you're right. I'm appreciating this opportunity to listen in on boxing, because for me, I have next to no experience of boxing. But what I can share is in high school, a police officer was involved in the boxing community, and he shared it with me. And I brought a buddy of mine to where he offered us to box, and it was in the basement of a funeral home. and my dad got a kick out of that. He's like, "Yeah, you probably had the embalming fluid ready to go and the whole thing." So fun little thing there. So just did about a half a dozen days of sparring over weeks, and a different experience there. But then I never did anything with boxing until last year, actually. With the pandemic and everything, they were doing some boxing activities online, and I actually caught on to it, and I did it for a couple months, once a week. Did some boxing stuff, and that was pretty interesting. But Bonnie, what I want to ask you is, with your role in the sport, what would you speak to in terms of the future and this idea of boxing being more available to people that enter the sport?
For the future, right now, I think that, boxing in general, male or female, one of the great things that happened during the pandemic is it went back to free TV. I remember as a kid, watching ABC Wild World of Sports, and the very first fight I ever saw in detail that I remember clearly and vividly was the Dooku Kim fight and Ray Boom Boom Mancini. And unfortunately, it was a tragic ending for Dooku Kim. It's the very first bout fight that I ever watched, and I remember being enthralled by it. But I was enthralled by a lot of sports because I was that kind of kid. I watched every Olympic, I watched every sport. And so boxing, I think we have gotten back on a very good path with getting it back into free network TV, so people can see it on not just ESPN, but DAZN does a lot of that, and Fox Sports. So we have there's just a lot of good free boxing on again, and now once it starts to open up again, because like right now a lot of it's over in Dubai. Jamel Herring, who is also a Marine, is going over to fight Peter Frampton. It was delayed a couple times, but they just reset the date for April 3rd. Instead of being over in the UK, now it's going to be in Dubai. But it's slowly starting to get back to, on the right track to go to where it was, I say kind of back in the golden years when, you had the Hagler and the Hearns and those types of matchups. It's just going to take some time, a few years, to get those to be trilogies and like with Ward and Gotti and those types of bouts where people just really want to see them. It's getting there, but it's hard too, right? When you can't have people in person. It'll be nice when we get back to those days. As far as making it more available to people, right now we're actually where I'm at. We are wanting to put in an actual boxing gym, but being closed down twice, that's been put on the back burner. I'm hoping within the next year that we are able to see that come to light and bring more people in and get them interested in the sport and, watch some kids, kind of take off with that and continue on, more of a career as far as amateur and pro. But
Right.
it's coming around. It's just taking time.
Right. Well, I've got a boxing question for this person over here to my right. Actually, right but left. Depending on how we're looking at it here.
No.
So, Dave, you had a run-in with a boxer, and I think 3rd grade. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did.
Oh no!
At the 4th grade.
4th grade. There we go.
It was at the Kent Phillips School in Corning, which is no longer there. But I wasn't one to take guff, so to speak, even when I got bullied. And I remember telling my son how to handle the bullies. My wife looked at me because I said, well, if they bully you, buddy, you just go, boom. And she looked at me and she said, that's not what you tell them. And I said, oh. So anyway, this kid was heckling me, and I got him out on the playground and decked him. And broke his glasses in the meantime. And so I had to get called into the principal, and he said to me, Mr. Clark, and I was, I don't know, whatever, 10 years old or 9, and nobody ever called me Mr. Clark. And he said, Mr. Clark, I hear you like to box. And he was a Gold Glove boxer. Had a reputation, big guy. I started I figured, I know where this is going. And I started shaking, and yeah. I know I really don't like to box. Well, I heard that you were pretty good at it. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, out on the playground the other day. And I said, oh, I said, yeah. I said, I really didn't mean to do that. And anyway, he said, well, Mr. Clark, you're going to be suspended for a couple of weeks here from eating in the cafeteria and all that. So I had to pay the price for decking this kid and busting his glasses. That was the only boxing I ever did. Well, no, I can't.
No.
Well, they had a baseball field a few times, but other than that, boxing was not my forte.
Well,
Did that answer the question?
Well, Fast and Furious MMA style was more his forte.
I mean, we had some boxing matches in the Clown Clubhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was every day. And then
Yeah.
when you play the Wayland Yankees enough, you have a brawl on the field, you know.
Yeah. That was classic.
So those, yeah, but boxing wasn't really my thing.
There you go.
Bonnie, I have a question. You mentioned that you had a choice between taking a job in, was it Orlando?
Yes.
And then the one that you did take in North Carolina?
Yes.
Do you ever think of how, your decision was obviously go back to North Carolina and the rest is history, but did you ever think of what would have happened if you had stuck with the job in Orlando?
Obviously, hindsight, but boxing is big down there. A lot of people like Bonnie Canino and Christy Martin was down there for a long time, and but I look at it and I always believe that everything happens for a reason. It's always been what I believe and how I think.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, had I not stayed where I'm at and things had not happened the way they did, nothing else that has happened in my life would have taken place. Right. It would have been different. And I don't know. Would I have found boxing down there at that point? Maybe not. Maybe I just would have been sweating all the time with the heat. And
sure.
Who knows? Who knows?
I think it's interesting that anybody can go through their life and come up with a point in time where they make this decision or that decision, how it would change the course of so much.
Yeah, and I'm glad obviously that I made the decision I did, and I think it worked out very well for me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved North Carolina. Spent 26 years down there, and one day I feel like I probably will go back there. Maybe when I'm 70, who knows? But because I love it down there. I love the weather, versus our weather up here. There's no comparison, but
right.
Yeah. Can I share a real quick story about why my favorite baseball team is who it is?
Absolutely. Have at it.
So when I played Little League, and my mom was a waitress at Chatawal, she came to the game and we were playing, and all of a sudden she came to me after the game and said, I'm going to send you. No, I don't know this person, this lady. She goes, I'm going to send you with this other lady, the grandmother of the kid that plays on your team. I'm like, okay. I think I was 9. I had no idea who she was. And you're going to go on a bus trip with her to Cleveland. For what? Her grandson got sick and she has tickets. It's like a 700 club on a bus to go for 2 days down to Friday or Saturday, Sunday to Cleveland to watch the Cleveland Indians play baseball. Wouldn't you like that? You want to go play baseball? And I'm thinking to myself, because I was a major introvert back then, I'm like, you're sending me with a stranger who I've never met on a hopefully round trip.
Yeah, I had some up one way
over to Ohio to watch games. Now seeing the game excited me. So that was my first delve into watching Major League Baseball game of any kind was the Cleveland Indians. So that's why they are my favorite team when Buddy Bell played third base.
Oh yeah, Buddy Bell.
And so they've been my team ever since. But we got there, we stayed at the Holiday Inn in downtown Cleveland. We got there in time to go to the night game. They played the Seattle Mariners. So we got to see the nighttime game. We had a doubleheader on Saturday and then a single game on Sunday.
Wow.
And then the bus broke down on the way home.
Sounds like yeah.
Yeah, Dave, guys, I'm sure you can relate to the bus breaking down, right?
Oh yeah. In Ohio too, actually.
In Ohio, yeah.
It's like the Bermuda Triangle or something there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, I want to ask maybe just one more question, and then, I have to ask the donut question, Bonnie. What's your favorite donut?
Well, my favorite donut would be the one that has the white cream, not the eclairs. It's just a vanilla filled chocolate top donut.
Oh, she's
From
with,
the
yeah, yeah. Yep, I'm there. I hate that Boston cream.
I don't like that
The
either.
yellow cream. I like that white cream. You're with me there. Yep.
No.
Yeah.
So we have to get the donut question in, and any other ways you want to wrap up tonight?
Well, I just want some of the people that listen in and watch us on a regular basis want to acknowledge them. Shout out to Beat Die and Barb Rossetti and anyone else that I can't see on there.
Yeah,
that,
not all the names
not
show
all the
for us
names
here.
show,
Barbara
yeah.
was on today,
Barb
and
Russ.
Gigi actually was on today. Gigi is a representative for a gentleman, Jamal Hill, who's going to be in the book, pulling each other along.
But a fantastic, interesting story, Bonnie, and really appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
So the last question I have for you, Bonnie, is, I've won some races, won some games. We've all, most of us are athletes here, and we've done all those things. But what's it like holding up a world championship belt?
Well, it's kind of something like this.
There you go. She's ready for it.
And then it's a little bit like this. I only have two hands, so it's to do that. I don't know that there's really really words to really describe how you feel. I mean, it's kind of like floating. You're a little in shock. You're elated. You almost can't believe that you've done it. It's just it's kind of a cool feeling to know that, your hard work paid off, in that particular way. And like I said, not barring the rings, the Hall of Fame, the belts. And I've always said this, that to me, it's just a way that God has given me a voice so that people actually want to listen and hear a story that otherwise I may not have been able to tell and share with people, so that, hopefully it helps others realize that, no matter what happens to you, you can really go through some things and come out on the other side.
Right. Well, that's been great. Well, we've had a great time with you tonight, and I appreciate you coming on. We've had Bonnie Mann, 3-time world champion boxer, and there's so much more to that. But Bonnie, thanks for being on the show. We're gonna wrap up now. If you're not familiar with Bonnie, just real quick, where's a place where people can find more about your story?
They can, best thing is gonna be for them to look for the book when it comes out, Pulling Each Other Along. Honestly, that's gonna be the best way. Or they can reach out to me on Facebook, just at Bonnie Mann, or WBE Champ. They can find me there and on Instagram. And if they have any events that they are looking for someone to come to or be a part of, they can reach me that way.
Very good. Well, this has been the Pulling Each Other Along show. And we've had Kurt and Dave and myself and Bonnie Mann, a special guest, and we're just glad she's here. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody. I don't know how we say goodbye on Facebook.
Good night, everybody.
We're just going to say goodbye.
We'll see you next week.
And end the stream. See you guys.